Welcome to Unit 2. This is Lesson 1 about the claims, reasons, evidence, and credible sources. So let's start by asking what makes an argument effective. In everyday life, we argue to convince others, but in academic writing, our goal is to persuade logically, not emotionally. So effective arguments are built from three connected components: a claim, the reasons that support that claim, and the evidence that proves those reasons are true. And each part is working together like the links in a chain. If one is weak, the argument is going to fall apart. So we're also going to learn why our arguments may be supported by credible or logical sources, not opinions or random internet posts. So by the end of today's lesson, our goal is to understand how to build strong evidence-based arguments that readers can respect and trust. So an argument is a claim that's supported by logical reasoning and credible evidence. It's not just emotion. In persuasive writing, we're going to rely on facts, not feelings. That means that our focus should always be on logic and clarity, not personal bias or emotional appeal. Good argumentation also requires fairness and accuracy. So you should represent information truthfully, even if it challenges your position. A strong writer is going to persuade readers not by yelling louder, but by reasoning better. And every good argument involves three core parts. First, it's the claim, which is the main point or the position that you're trying to prove. This is your argument's foundation. Second are the reasons, which are the logical explanations that are supporting your claim and is helping your readers understand why your position makes sense. And then finally, we have the evidence. These are your proofs. Evidence can take a lot of different forms, like facts or data, examples, expert quotes, or statistics. And when we combine all three of these elements and they connect, your writing moves from just opinion to persuasion. So a claim is a statement that takes a clear position on an issue. It should be debatable and specific, not just a statement of fact. So, for example, pollution is bad. That's too general. It's true, but it doesn't invite discussion. Instead, we might say local governments should ban single-use plastics to protect the environment. That's specific and arguable. Your claim should guide the direction of your argument because it's going to set the focus and the scope of what you're saying. So a good example of this is school uniforms should be mandatory because they reduce bullying. That statement takes a clear position and it gives us a logical reason to explore. So let's review what makes a good claim. First, it needs to be clearly stated and specific so your reader knows exactly what you're arguing. Second, it needs to be debatable but reasonable. It's something that others might disagree with, but not something extreme or illogical. And then third, it should be focused. We want to avoid broad or vague topics like social media is bad. And we want to narrow it down to something like social media use after midnight negatively impacts teen sleep patterns. And then lastly, we want to make sure that our claim can be supported by credible reasons or evidence. And if you can't find reliable data or expert opinions, then the claim may need to be refined. So your reasons explain why the claim makes sense. So the reasons should be logical and relevant to your topic. So we want to avoid letting emotions or personal bias drive our argument. Academic arguments rely on reasoning that can be supported and tested. Remember, each reason must have its own supporting evidence to make it believable. So for example, if your claim is uniforms reduce bullying, one reason might be uniforms create equality among students by removing visible income differences. And that's logical. It's relevant and it's backed by research, or it can be backed by surveys. Weak reasons rely on feelings. Strong reasons rely on logic. And it's the evidence that's going to turn your reasoning into proof. It includes facts, statistics, examples, expert opinions, research studies, surveys, whatever. And that adds to the credibility of your argument. Each piece of evidence has to directly support your reason or claim. If it doesn't, it's just going to distract the readers from your point. Evidence has to be accurate and relevant and up to date to remain trustworthy. I don't want to use a research study from 1972 when there's been plenty of other research studies that have been done since then. And then lastly, we always want to cite our sources. We want to give credit, that not only avoids plagiarism, but it also demonstrates that you've done research and you value integrity in your work. And when we find research, we always want to test for credibility using the CRAP test: currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. So we want to ask ourselves, is this information recent and up to date? So that's the currency. Is it relevant to my claim? Does it come from an author or an organization with authority in the field? Are the facts accurate and verifiable through other sources? And then finally, what is the purpose? Is it to inform, persuade, entertain, or sell? If a source is trying to sell or emotionally manipulate, it might not be trustworthy. Reliable sources are going to strengthen your argument. Weak ones are going to damage it. So let's apply our credibility tests. The example claim is cell phone use during class should be limited. We have 3 possible sources here. Source A is a 2020 blog post by a high school student. This might be relatable, but it's going to lack authority or research. Source B is a 2022 Pew Research Center study on student distraction. This is a strong one because it's recent, it's relevant, and it's backed by data. And then source C is a 2021 advertisement from a tech company promoting educational apps. So this one clearly has bias and a financial motive. So the most credible source here is source B because it's current, it's reliable, and it's written by an unbiased organization. So let's put everything together here. We want to write one claim about a school or a community issue, something that's meaningful to you, like cafeteria food, start times, phone policies, whatever. And then we want to add 2 logical reasons that explain why your claim makes sense. And then finally, we want to include 1 piece of credible evidence to back it up. This should come from a study, a statistic, or a credible article. We want to be sure to share our mini argument with a partner or our learning coach. The goal here is to see how these parts, the claims, the reasons, the evidence, how they're working together to form a persuasive, logical statement. And to wrap it up, we want to reflect on these 3 questions. What makes a claim strong? A strong claim is specific, it's arguable, and it's supportable with logic and research. Why is credibility important? Well, it ensures that your readers trust your ideas. It's separating informed argument from mere opinion. And then, how does evidence turn opinion into argument? Well, evidence proves that your reasoning is grounded in fact, not emotion. And when you can explain your logic and you can back it with data, you move from opinion to persuasion. And that's the mark of an effective writer.